Hello and welcome back to Karma Stories. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 5 stories for you from the IDontWorkHereLady subreddit. Before we start today, thank you to each and every one of you for being here. I really appreciate it and I love seeing you all down in the comments below. So do me a favor, comment on this one and let me know what you're doing today because I'd love to respond to a bunch of you. Alright, on to today's stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Boneyard Birdie. Does anyone ever really look at people before assuming they work there? So this is more a collection of stories than a single one. Back in my hometown, there's a branch of a store chain called Job Lot. For those that don't have them, they're a discount warehouse type store that gets all kinds of good and unusual stuff for decent prices. I spent a lot of time there as a young adult because they had a steady stream of my favorite canvas boards and European chocolate bars. Well, the uniform for that job lot is just regular clothes, but with a big bright blue vest and name tag on a lanyard. Obviously, there are limits to the street clothes that employees can wear. Basically, just nothing obscene, overly revealing, or dirty. Well, I'm a metalhead and hadn't yet entered my Adam Sandler phase, so I was usually pretty decked out in leather, chains, spikes, high-heeled leather boots, and band tees. What can I say? I really liked wearing the cool outfits. There is this leather vest I bought and I loved it to pieces. I don't wear a purse, so having a leather vest with huge pockets rocked. I wore that thing everywhere. Well, apparently, that put a darn target on my back. Suddenly, housewives, presumably named Susan or Deborah, would just start asking questions while I stared at them dumbfounded. A few times, there were exploding heads and all sorts of NSFW stuff on my shirts, and it did not stop them. I stopped in after being out with a friend one day, and I was in 7-inch platform wedges, a butt-length white wig, spiked bracers, the vest, spiked choker, Baphomet pendant, and shirt with monsters dismembering people. Classy, I know. Literally, the outfit you'd think would be the least possible to be mistaken for an employee. I was wearing earbuds and was checking something on the far end of the store. Out of the corner of my eye, I see a middle-aged couple pointing at me. Obviously, I can't hear what they're saying, but it was probably, "Let's ask this woman that definitely works here." Not wanting to deal with it, I walked away, hoping the fact that I was walking in 7-inch platforms and jangled like a TSA agent's worst nightmare would be enough to deter them. It did not. They followed me across the store and down 2 aisles. Finally, I turn around, sick of being tailed, and let them catch up. The wife comes up to me and starts babbling about lawn furniture. She's looking dead straight at me. I'm pretty annoyed at this point since my feet were just starting to hurt and I wanted to get my crap and leave. "I don't work here." "What? Really?" She was not being sarcastic. I looked down at myself, wondering what kind of employees she's used to seeing, and looked back up. Yeah, really. She finally seems to actually look at me and the shirt I'm wearing. The look of horror was almost worth having to trek across the store. She grabbed her hubby, who seemed like he wanted to fall into a hole at this point, and they scurry off. I also have some stories about I'm not a waitress. I'm a chef's apprentice, and I've been in kitchens for almost a decade now. I love it, I do. I refuse to go into the dining room during business hours. I wear a chef's jacket, a nice chef's apron with an adjustable neck, a skull cap, and chef pants. I have rags hanging from my apron strings. Basically, there's no way that I am anything but kitchen staff. Kitchen staff cannot use the POS systems. They do not have credentials. They do not need them. The only exceptions being the chef and maybe the sous depending on the place. One of the places I worked, you had to walk through a section of the dining room to go to the root cellar. My male colleagues would come and go through there with no issues. I had a male dishwasher once have someone try to give him their order, but that was it. I got stopped about 50% of the time. I reached a point where I refused to leave the kitchen during business hours. My boss was fully on board because he got sick of me being delayed getting back because some guy couldn't comprehend that the woman in a chef jacket and carrying a bus bucket of onions was not a waitress and could not take his credit card. Thankfully, since leaving that restaurant, I haven't had to regularly enter a dining room at all, let alone while we had customers in the restaurant. Although, a few weeks ago, I did need forks for something I was doing. All the waitstaff were busy, and the silverware bin in the back of house was empty. So I had to poke into the dining room. Literally barely leave the doorway. Again, chef's jacket, chef's apron, kitchen pants, skull cap, rags. No way I'm not kitchen staff. Can you seat us somewhere else? I don't think she's talking to me, so I ignore her. Excuse me, you there, I want another table. I turn around and she is definitely looking at me. Sorry, can't help you. I'm kitchen staff. I'll have the server come help you. And I bolted back inside the kitchen before she can open her mouth because nope. I heard from their server that they were complaining about the server that wouldn't help them and tried to claim they worked in the kitchen. I can't with these people. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Too Bored to yeah, we're not going to say that. Some people are so self-absorbed that they lack logical thinking, or they have some other problems in their head, or main character syndrome. OP responded and said, dude, first of all, great username. Second, it always concerns me how ready the restaurant customers were to just give some person their credit card. Like, I'm honest and I don't have a record, but I've worked with addicts, felons that are definitely not done being felonious, and dudes that you wouldn't trust to run a bath, let alone a credit card. Another commenter down below called Niobe Tonk said, oh, it's definitely to do with being a woman in hospitality. I was working at a conference checking people in and handing out name badges and goodie bags, wearing black jeans and a blue polo shirt with the organization's branding. We had the conference suite of a hotel whose reception staff who, if I remember correctly, wore black skirts or trousers, not jeans, white shirts, and green blazers. Several people tried to get me, not my male colleagues, to check them in or out, register their cars for the car park, etc. Eventually, my boss went to get in front of house management to fend people off. We were in the lobby at a table on the opposite side to the hotel reception. OP responded to this one and said, it's wild, right? I had no car for a while after a bad wreck and had to use Uber to get to and from work. Every single driver asked if I waited tables. Every single one. The funny part, in every kitchen I've worked, 99% of the kitchen staff don't give an F what giblets you have as long as you work fast, clean, and show up. It was always management, front of house, and customers that were weirdly biased. And I say biased because you could tell there was no intention behind it. Just some societal conditioning we all fall for without realizing. I did run into some real, genuine sexist buttholes though, laugh out loud. The owner of my first restaurant was 6'2" Amazon of a woman that took nobody's crap. The dishwasher repair guy was really insulting to me, her, and the other woman in that kitchen. I thought she was going to hurt him. He did not come back. Alright, for the first part of this one where OP was wearing leather and chains, it just sounds like the old people who needed help didn't get a good look at OP and maybe their eyes are going and they saw OP from a little bit further away. Who knows, but it sounds to me like it was more innocent because when they actually got closer and were able to see what OP looked like, they kinda put their heads down and walked away sheepishly. For the second part, I've seen this in restaurants myself. It's that some people think that anybody who works in the restaurant is there to help them out at any time. So even if you're just walking by on your way to pick something up and then go back to your station, it doesn't matter. You work there, so they want you to answer the question. The best thing you can do in that case is say, like OP did, I'll get your waitress for you. Unfortunately, I can't help you with that. This story comes to us from Calido Valero. She tried to train me at a job I didn't even apply for. I was killing time at a pet store waiting for my friend. He was late, so I started looking at the reptiles because I've always wanted a bearded dragon. I'm wearing this green hoodie. Turns out the staff wear bright green shirts. Close enough, I guess. A woman in her 40s, total manager haircut energy, walks up and goes, "You're the new guy, right? Orientation started 10 minutes ago." I kinda laugh, thinking she's kidding, but she's not even blinking. Next thing I know, she hands me a clipboard and starts walking. I follow. Why? I don't know. Curiosity? Maybe. She's talking about corporate breathing down her neck about the fish tanks and how no one wants to work anymore. I'm just nodding, trying not to lose it. Then she points to the hamster cages and says, "You can start there." I tell her I don't even work there. She just frowns like I said something disrespectful. Right then, an actual employee walks in wearing the same color shirt and goes, "Hey, you're that customer from earlier." The woman just stops, looks between us, says, "Well, maybe both of you could be a little more professional," and walks off. I just stood there holding the darn clipboard, like maybe I do work there now. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called Extremely Online TM. It says, "Call a lawyer, you might be entitled to severance pay." Another commenter called Frank JC Third said, "I would have chuckled and looked at the employee and handed them the clipboard saying, 'For all your hard work, I award you this clipboard.'" Okay, so you mean to tell me that the manager who likely does the hiring in this store didn't even know who they hired and who was training that day? And then, when they realized that OP was not one of their employees, they told their actual employee and OP that they could both be a little more professional. Right, yeah. Could somebody please get that manager a mirror? This story comes to us from Chalk in Boots. The employee had to duck out for a minute, and I'm just helping buy time until they get back. So I used to work at one of the biggest stores in a major shopping center. Like, we'd have 20 to 30 people on each day. Now, because the center was so big, a lot of employees of different stores would either recognize or even become friends with people from other stores because we basically did any shopping in the center to make life easier. Plus, a lot of places would hook each other up on pricing, free coffee cards, stuff like that. Well, eventually, I became friends with the manager of the small menswear store downstairs. We'd stop by each other's works and chat during breaks, hang out after work sometimes, mutual staff pricing, you get the idea. Because I was in his store so often, I ended up becoming friends with the other staff. Well, his store would often only have one person on for the whole day, or only have two for a 3-hour period so people could have their breaks. Now, it was a right pain in the butt to lock up because you had to bring a bunch of merch back in, close and lock the doors, then when you got back, do the reverse. And you would likely lose whatever sale you might get because they'd just go to one of the other stores. This meant if it was only one person, they might not go to the bathroom or even drink water. Would keep snacks behind the register for food. Because of this, sometimes I'd drop by and whoever was on would say something like they hadn't been to the bathroom yet or really needed to get a quick snack. And because they all knew and trusted me, they'd ask me to just mind the store for 2 minutes, greet and help as best I can, they'll be right back. Key point here, neither their store nor mine had uniforms, and I largely wore clothes from theirs because the discount was so good. So on multiple occasions, someone would walk in, I'd greet them, occasionally point out where certain things were. Most of the time, it was just someone browsing, but occasionally they'd want to buy something, and I'd have to explain, yeah, I don't actually work here, just mates with the guy who does, and he just ran to the loo, should be back any moment and can ring you up. Ah, yep, here they are. Customer just looking so confused about the situation. But one good thing about Australians is we can often have the oddest situations and just go, yeah, alright, and carry on like it's perfectly normal. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called FunImprovement9379. It says, "Exactly, totally reasonable. You were just helping out a mate for a minute, not pretending to be staff long term. Most people get it once you clarify, and a little confusion is harmless." Okay, I completely understand that OP is helping out their friends, and I hope this isn't a chain store and is just a mom and pop store, because chain stores have rules where if something happened in the store while OP was there and they don't work there, it could open them up to a huge amount of liability. Them or the person that they're covering for especially. That being said though, OP's heart is definitely in the right place covering for their friends. I know the friends probably can't reciprocate because OP works in a place with so many employees, but it's really nice to have people that trust you that much. This story comes to us from Fishfine. None of us work here, lady. This took place around 2006 in a Fred Meyer in the Seattle area. At the time, I worked for an inventory company called RGIS. Our job was to go to various retail locations and literally count everything in the store. So we worked in the store, but not for the store. Fred Meyer has a dress code for employees, but no set uniform to speak of. RGIS employees, however, all wore a matching maroon uniform shirt. Anyway, we were finishing up this particular Fred Meyer, and thus every one of us was counting the cosmetic aisle together. I was neck deep in eyebrow pencils or nail polish or some such when a customer came up and asked me where she could find something or other. I politely let her know I didn't work there and was just doing inventory. Pretty standard interaction for that job. But instead of going to find an actual employee, she instead went to my next coworker and asked the same question, and got the same response. This repeated 4 or 5 times, even though all of us were very obviously counting and wearing the same uniform, with the same scanning machine in our hands. She finally got so flustered that she stood in the middle of the aisle and yelled, "Doesn't anybody work here?" We all glanced at her before going back to counting lipstick so we could get out of that store. I have no idea if she ever got the help she was looking for. The best part was, as a result of this and other similar incidents, when customers asked for directions, our boss allowed us to direct them to random places in the store, as long as we were polite about it. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called LiveOkra9868. It says, I worked for an audit company that would randomly show up in certain stores to check if their top selling items were on the shelves. Even in the dead of winter, walking around with a winter coat, hat, and scarf, people demanded I help them. I, too, would direct those people to anywhere in the store. I don't work for this store, and even though I go into the same brands, all of them have different layouts. Please find someone with a name tag that has the name of the store on it. OP responded and said, seriously, I used to joke about getting "I don't work here" tattooed on my palm so I could just flash it at everyone who asked. When Wifey and I were running our convenience store, which was a franchise of a national chain, we would have inventory people come in once every 3 months or so. And we would put a sign on the door saying not to bother them when you came in, because it was all the time that they would get asked questions about where things were. So we put up a sign saying to talk to the person at the counter, and they could answer your questions for you so that the inventory people could get their stuff done more quickly. In some of the larger stores, the owners would actually schedule in another person just to stand around the inventory people and make sure that they weren't asked questions and didn't have a chance to tell people the wrong information. This story comes to us from Canadian Death Metal. I am not a financial institution. You got the wrong number. So a few years back, I decided to give Google Voice another go. I used it back when I was a teenager in high school, mostly for prank calling people. Yeah, I know, laughing my butt off. Anyways, back then Google Voice didn't assign numbers like they do now. So anyone using it would show up with the same default number on the caller ID. It was virtually untraceable, but now they make you choose a number. So I decided on a number from Florida. Almost shortly after I chose this number, I would get calls from people looking for some kind of company. I could never make out what they were looking for. Something capital. I would always get hung up on when asking for more information. That was annoying. The calls weren't constant, but enough of a pattern to cause confusion. I could tell that the callers were either elderly or had difficulty speaking English. Again, I tried to ask for this company so I could research it and find out why I'm getting their calls. But they would often go, okay, thanks, then hang up when I said wrong number. Eventually, a year or so later, I got another call. Only this time, I was able to talk with a pretty chill dude. He told me the name and why they mailed him flyers, which was another reason I'd get calls. I especially wanted to get a hold of this place because one of the callers was trying to make a payment. That seemed like an urgent matter, and they shouldn't miss payments due to something beyond their control. I was able to research the name of that company and make my own call. I explained to them what was happening and asked why am I getting these calls. There was some confusion at first, but once I explained the situation, they ended up talking to a supervisor or something. Turns out, one of their loan officers had this phone number originally, but let it expire because IT didn't pay enough attention to it. This loan officer also didn't tell most of his clients that his phone number had changed, so I got stuck with it. They also dealt with some Spanish-speaking clients as well, which explained the language barrier. They thanked me for telling them about this, and they went on to try and get the word out. Have this guy update his contacts, whatever. I would still get the occasional calls after that, but I would direct them to the official loan company's 800 number. I haven't gotten a call in a while, so I assume the word got out not to call my secondary number anymore. Laugh out loud. However, I still get texts asking for a Linda, who is apparently in the mortgage industry. Those I don't know how to stop, because they seem like bots. I don't know if they're related, but whoever had this number previously must have been some financial wizard. Jumping down to the comments on this one, we have one from a user called ECKX. It says, reminds me growing up, we used to get calls constantly for an insurance agent. So annoying answering the phone, and then they take it out on you for not being who they failed to call. OP responded and said, I often wonder how people hear hello instead of insurance agency when someone answers the phone, then proceeds to continue to talk to you as if you're an insurance company. How have these people not had their identities stolen yet? Another commenter down below called Rogue Guy Brian said, when I was a kid, my family got calls every 5 minutes for at least 2 days from what sounded like a fax machine. We found out that the number that was trying to dial our number was the modem at a local grocery store trying to place a remote order for new stock, and they had accidentally put in our phone number and couldn't figure out why their modem wasn't working. It was extremely annoying to pick up the phone every few minutes and hear that crazy screeching noise. OP responded and said, oh my gosh, we got calls from a fax machine too. Turns out it was coming from a doctor's office or something. They didn't seem too worried when I called them about it. Having somebody's previous number can be an absolute pain in the butt. Now, my phone number I've had since 1998. I'm kind of dating myself there, but my daughter just got her phone number about a year ago, and it's a really cool repeating number that I obviously can't say on here, but it apparently belonged to somebody previously who has a lot of stuff in collections because she's getting text messages and phone calls from collection agencies looking for a Charles, and she is definitely not a Charles. I figure if you get enough calls for one place and you call that place and tell them that there's a problem, if it continues and they don't help you to resolve that, then you should answer those calls like you are that place and schedule people in for appointments and whatever, especially right near the end of the day when the people running that place usually want to go home. Alright, I think we'll end this one here on that pro tip. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us on your preferred podcasting platform. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really does help us out. I thank you all for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.